Jaime Battiste joins us from Eskasoni. Yes, sir, word that you want to run for the Liberal leadership and become Prime Minister came as a surprise to some political observers. Why are you doing this?
You know, I went to Ottawa last week, and I really hope that some of my Atlantic colleagues, like Sean Fraser or Dominic LeBlanc, would agree to be that Atlantic voice in this discussion. They said they didn't want to, and so you know, I on the way back, I was getting calls from First Nations leaders across Canada urging me to take this on. There were several posts on Facebook asking me to step up, and there was just a lot of people saying you can do this. And my first inclination was to say this is a monumental task that I don't know how I'd raise $350,000, but the more they talked to me, the more they said, if you don't try, you'll never know. And I think that's something that I reflected on and said, you know what? I could be the first one. I could be the first Indigenous person to run for Prime Minister. I could be. And, within our history, I've said many times that before there was a Premier Wab Kinew, there was an Elijah Harper. Before there was a President Barack Obama, there was a Jesse Jackson. Someone has to be the first one to try, even if they know the first steps that they're taking are just to pave the way for future generations. And so I felt that I could get Indigenous people excited. I felt like I could be that Atlantic voice. And so I felt that this is something that I wanted to try to take on, to be the first person to run for Prime Minister.
There's your motivation for sure. You mentioned the challenge there, $350,000 just to get into the race, and then who knows how much money after that to run a campaign for over the next 2 months. And you have to do it in pretty fast order. I heard you say yesterday you have $40,000 raised already. How much have you raised today?
Not as much as I'd like. I keep doing a lot of interviews, but truthfully, it's one phone call at a time. Over the weekend, I set a target for myself, and if I met that target by Sunday night, I've spoken to more than 70 leaders across Canada, Indigenous and non-Indigenous. I think that things are going really well. I'm getting everything set up with the banking, with the website, all the things that you need to take this on. And so it's going really well. It's going well, better than expected. And so, but it's one day at a time, one phone call at a time. And I just keep telling people, though, if I can, I'm going to run a very humble campaign. I'm going to do a lot of calls. I'm not going to do any events. If I get donations of $500 to $1,000, if I don't hit this target and I don't hit the first targets, I'm going to send people their money back, minus their banking fees, and say, we gave it our best shot, but it just wasn't enough time. But I hear it's going to be installments, so maybe there's hope in the horizon.
Okay. So how close are you to the 350? Just to have that on the record.
I wouldn't know. I believe that my commitments are anywhere between 40 and 60,000 right now, but I can't. They're just commitments until they're actually in the bank account, which I have to set up. And you wouldn't believe how hard it is, even when you're trying to run for Prime Minister, to get a bank to make time for you. So if there's any banks out there, hey, listen, I've been trying for a few days.
Okay, hopefully they're tuning in. You have to have a national network to get your name out there and get your face out there, to get people across the country to know who you are in just 2 months. Do you have much of a network? Do you have any MP support at all?
So I've been traveling across the country with the Assembly of First Nations since I was on the Youth Council way back in the Kelowna Accord days with Paul Martin. I was there. I've got a network of former youth council, former regional chiefs from across this country, as well as I went to law school. I've got some pretty impressive law school friends. David Eby, I went to law school with. I've known Wab Kinew for more than 20 years. I used to live in Saskatchewan. My parents were professors there for more than 30 years. I've got networks from across Canada, from the First Nations, but also from lived experiences. And whether I'm going to be able to channel that all those networks into 350,000, I don't know. But just from one day and one night of announcing, I've seen communities across the country saying that they're going to help me out. I had to laugh. I saw one community saying that they wanted to help me out, and they were going to put on a fundraising bingo for me. So, these are things that last night was one of the better nights of my political career, just to see the outpouring of support that I'm getting. It's amazing.
So the fundraising underway. What do you bring to leadership that Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland do not?
You know what? I want to keep my campaign positive. I appreciate Mark Carney. I appreciate Chrystia Freeland. I appreciate all these people who are in the race. What I want to be is an Atlantic voice. What I want to be is an Indigenous voice. I want to be a voice for the environment, human rights, social justice. And I think that what I'm bringing is just the ability to have collaboration with the premiers, with First Nations communities, with municipalities. I've always been collaborative in my approaches to leadership, and I think that it's not necessarily about what I bring that they don't. It's about who I am and what are the values I've grown up with.
Would you kill the carbon tax?
Listen, I'm an environmentalist at heart. I grew up in a Mi'kmaq community that we were taught that we're connected to our environment. We're not owners of it. We're not. It's not a commodity to be bought and sold. But listen, in Nova Scotia, we've seen fires, floods, hurricanes. We've seen record snowfalls. We have to be serious about the environment. But what I have committed is to the premiers that I've talked to is that I will pause the increase on the carbon pricing until we have a First Minister's meeting on that. But what we have to be clear on this is if we take steps backwards on the environment and on carbon pricing, we also have to have the conversation about who's paying for the environmental catastrophes that are happening. Look at what's going on in Los Angeles. Look at what's going on in various parts of our country. Federally, we're picking up 90% of that tab for that. If they want to have a conversation that's serious about carbon pricing and what we do, we have to have a serious conversation about who pays for these catastrophes and how we cost share this.
Okay, and we will have to leave it there. Mr. Battiste, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.